Okay, we want to start up by asking the question, how old does the Bible say the earth is? Now, we've been discussing this quite a bit, and the answer to that is, where in the Bible does it say how old the earth is? There's no verse anywhere in the Bible that says exactly how old the earth is. So you've got to ask yourself some questions then about how much of a big deal you're going to make of this. And as this hopefully comes up here, we want to start off by saying, if the Bible doesn't say specifically how old the earth is, you have to be careful about making that a test of orthodoxy. Now, what I mean by test of orthodoxy is, how should I say, are you going to split churches over this issue of how old the earth is? Now, by the way, have some churches split over that. Is that the wrong issue? It's the wrong issue because different people are going to have different opinions, and it's only their opinions because the Bible doesn't tell us how old the earth is. So I want to say the age of the earth should not be a test of orthodoxy. Should not be a test since it doesn't say. There's not one clear verse in the Bible that says how old the earth is. It's all conjecture. Now you can have your own conjectures, you can have all your reasons you want, but it's still conjecture. You don't have a thus saith the Lord on this one. So you've got to back off and realize, can your own conjectures be wrong? Can your own conjectures be wrong? I said your own conjectures can be wrong. Okay. I'm joking, of course, because I'll show you things in the next class period where I've changed my opinion over the years. I've changed how I thought about things, okay? So be careful about that. Here is an example. I put up some examples of people. You've got to be careful about pushing science into and grabbing science out of the Bible. You've got to be careful about pushing science into or out of the Bible. Here are some examples. I think we mentioned some of these last time, right? The poison in Psalm 104, verse 3. Psalm 104 is a beautiful, if you love animals, Psalm 104 is your psalm, okay? If you love animals, good animal. But anyways, it talks about the poison of asps being under its tongue. The poison of asps being under its tongue. Now, serpents and snakes, asps and stuff, when a rattlesnake bites you, is it because the poison is under its tongue, or is the poison in the fangs? It's in the fangs, okay? So this is a poetic description. It's not, is this meant to be taken, say, oh, with the asps, they've got special poison under their tongue. That's not the point, okay? It's not the point. So you got to be careful about pushing science into or out of the Bible. This is a poetic description of an asp, but it's not meant to be taken as, a scientific description. Here in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 12, it talks about the four corners of the earth. And again, you can't say, well, okay, they all held to a flat earth, so therefore the Bible teaches a flat earth. You're getting the wrong point. It's just saying what? All over the earth, the four corners of the earth. And by the way, even in the 21st century, do we talk about the four corners of the earth? People came from the four corners of the earth to go to New York City for 9/11, okay, from the four corners of the earth. All we're talking about is north, south, east, west. We're not making a statement that the earth is flat. So you've got to be careful with that. Job 9:6 talks about the pillars of the earth. Again, it's not a description. It's not, this is electromagnetic description of how the earth is balanced. Job doesn't know about electromagnetism. When he talks about, it's just a poetic way of saying the earth is stable. It's set on pillars. So you got to be careful about taking some of this stuff and pushing science into the Bible or science out of the Bible and stuff. Eric, do you have a question?
It's like Joshua when he said, sun stands still.
Okay, now the sun stands still. We're going to have to talk about that. Joshua chapter 10 and things. The problem there is understanding what it means by stand still. The word there actually means silent, and so we're going to have to talk about that. And I'm not, how should I say, I'll deal with that when we get to the book of Joshua, but he's about 3 weeks ahead of me here. So, okay, now, my point is major on the majors, minor on the minors. The age of the earth is a minor point. Don't major on that. And then check your attitude. When somebody disagrees with you, are you able to handle disagreements? You know what I'm saying? And this is really important. How do you treat people when you disagree with them on some of these theological points? Now, this is another big point. Genealogy. How do some people come up with a date that the early earth is like 10, 20,000 years old? People use the genealogies, and what they do is they start adding up the ages of this guy lived 900 years, this guy lived 969 years, this guy lived, and they add up all the genealogies, and you end up, and then if you add up the genealogies, they say that's how old the earth is by adding up the genealogies. Can you do that? Our genealogy is meant to give us chronology. Chronology has to do with chronos is time. Genealogy has to do with what? Father, son, or whatever in the family coming down like that. Chronology and genealogy are two different things. You can't mix them, and I'll show you how they are not. Okay, so the two big genealogies that people try to establish the age of the earth are Genesis chapter 5, the genealogy of Adam, and then Genesis chapter 11 with the genealogy coming from Noah down to the time of Abraham. So they use and they add up those numbers of how old these guys lived and things. The problem with that is that if you add up the genealogy, you end up with 4004 BC. If you add up the genealogy as Bishop Ussher did, you come up that the earth was created at 4004 BC. Why can't that be? If the earth was created 4004 BC, do you need a flood at least 1,000 years later? Because many of those guys lived 900 years. At least now if you're from 4,000, you're down to when did the flood happen? 3,000 or into the 2,000? What's the problem with that? Do we have written records back into the 3,000 from both Mesopotamia at Sumer and in Egypt? So it can't be. And by the way, there's a tower probably as big as those two pillars in this area between the two pillars at Jericho that's 8,000 years old. Well, if that tower at Jericho is 8,000 years old, how can the earth be created at 4,000? You know what I'm saying? Did God make the tower? Okay, I'm sorry, that was supposed to be a joke, okay? God didn't make the tower, okay? Human beings made that tower at 8,000 BC and stuff. So you got to be real careful with it. Now, let me just show you this and demonstrate. If you got your Bibles, pop over to Matthew chapter 1, and I'll show you the genealogy of Jesus Christ. The genealogy, are there holes in the genealogy of Jesus Christ? Yeah, okay. So if you look at Matthew chapter 1, verse 8, it says Solomon was the father of Rehoboam, Rehoboam the father of Aviah, Aviah the father of Asa. And then verse 8, Asa was the father of Jehoshaphat, Jehoshaphat was the father of Jehoram. And then it says Jehoram was the father of Uzziah in verse 8, Matthew chapter 1, verse 8. Jehoram was the father of Uzziah. Is that wrong? Was Jehoram the father of Uzziah? And the answer is no, he was not. Jehoram was not the father of Uzziah. Okay? Now that's a fact. Whether you agree with me or disagree, it doesn't make any difference. That's a fact. Jehoram was not the father of Uzziah. He was the great-great-grandfather. There's 3 names that are skipped here. There are 3 names that are skipped. Between Jehoram and Uzziah, there are 3 names that were skipped. Now you say, Hildebrandt, how do you know that? And you say, you're talking real dogmatic here, Hildebrandt. How do you know that? Well, I don't know anything. I go to the Bible. If you go to 1 Chronicles chapter 3:11, it tells us the names of the 3 kings that were from Jehoram to Uzziah. It lists the 3 kings that are skipped. And their names are Ahaziah, Joash, and Amaziah, or Azariah. Those are the Amaziah. I was right the first time. Ahaziah, Joash, and Amaziah are skipped. So 3 names are skipped. Now, why would Matthew skip 3 names? He's coming down a list of the kings of Israel. Would most Jews know the kings of Israel? Okay, we don't memorize the kings in this class, but most Jews would know the kings, and they'd know those 3 names are skipped. Why did Matthew do that? Let me read you a thing. Going down to verse 17, check this out, Matthew chapter 1, verse 17. There are 14 generations from Abraham to David. Okay, 14 generations from Abraham to David. What was the date of Abraham? Approximately. 2,000. What's David? 1,000. Okay, we know that. Abraham's 2,000, David's 1,000. There are 14 generations from Abraham to David. There are 14 generations from David until the exile to Babylon. So from David, 1,000 down to 586 of the Babylonian captivity, there are 14 generations. And then it says there are 14 generations from the exile to Babylon to Christ. So 14 generations, Abraham to David, 14 generations, David to the exile, and 14 generations from the exile down to Jesus. How did Matthew make it come out to be 14, 14, and 14? Guess what he did with 3 of the names? Do you guys know about fudge factors? I was in science and stuff, and they call these fudge factors. In other words, it didn't work out, right? So he dropped 3 names to make it 14. Now you say, he didn't really do that. Yeah, he really did that. Okay, we know the 3 names that he skipped here. Now, why did he do that? One suggestion, and I think it is a good one, actually. In English, we do what? Do you have letters that compose words? You have letters that compose words. Do we have numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different than the ABC? So we have two different systems, numbers and letters, okay? Two different systems. Do you realize the Jews use their alphabet for their numbers? Now question, is that a problem? Okay, so A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is what, 4, E, whatever, go down, okay? Their letters are their numbers. Can that at points create problems? Because you don't know whether you're looking at a number or whether you're looking at a word. It's very interesting, very, very interesting, that if you take the Hebrew letter for D, which is 4, the number 4, V is 6, and you take D is 4, and you add those together, you got 4 plus 6 plus 4, it's what? 14. Who is this? David. Okay? So the suggestion here is that Matthew is subtly saying Jesus Christ is whose son? The son of David. 14, 14, 14. David, David, David. You see what he's doing? So he drops those 3s to make it 14 because what is his point? If you didn't get it, he says it explicitly in verse 1. A record of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David. And then does he build that genealogy to basically show that? Yeah, okay. Now, by the way, is it okay to drop 3 names like that? By the way, the word father, can the word father also mean ancestor? Yeah, the word father means ancestor, okay? Jesus Christ, the son of David. Jesus Christ, the son of David. Is the word son there used what? There's how much from David to Jesus? Jesus was 0, right? David's 1,000, so there's what, 1,000 years there. Okay, Jesus wasn't really 0. I was just saying that to see if anybody smiled. But anyways, okay, so you've got 1,000 down to the time of Jesus. It's about 1,000 years, okay? So Jesus Christ, the son of David, he was the what? He was the descendant of David. Jesus Christ's father was not David directly. His father was, God and the Holy Spirit and things, but I'm saying David was his ancestor. David was his ancestor through Mary. So this is what I think is going on there. So all I'm trying to say is, do we know for sure that there are holes in genealogies? Yes. Okay, you can't use genealogy to establish chronology. There may be holes. Who knows how long those holes will be? So, okay. So that leaves you with the 4004 date. Nobody accepts that today. This is something Bishop Ussher did way back, and so nobody holds that today because, for example, Jericho, we've got stuff in Jericho that goes back to 8000 BC. Okay, and so it can't be right. And so we realized that the genealogies didn't give us, when it says father, son, that there may be huge gaps. There may be, he may be the great-great-great-great-grandfather of so-and-so. So be careful with that stuff.